What's up, guys? It's Carly with FasciNATIVE English, where if you are finally ready to take your English to another level and to begin speaking English like a native English speaker, then you've come to the right place. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I have a phrasal verb for you all today, and I do not think I've gone over many phrasal verbs here on my channel yet, but they are so common, and a lot of times we don't even know that we're using them. Like, phrasal verbs are used so often that we don't even really realize it. And honestly, even as a native English speaker who is an English teacher with an English degree, even I don't realize half the time when I use these, but I will share one with you all today. So today's phrasal verb that we're going to go over is gobble up. Again, that is gobble up. Now, gobble up just means, actually there's like two different definitions, but they kind of still mean the same thing. Gobble up just means to use something very quickly or to eat a large amount of something very quickly. All right, so to use something very quickly or to eat a large amount of something very quickly. If you gobble up, you either use something very quickly or you eat it very quickly, all right? Two different examples for you all today, one for each definition. The first one, gobble up, to use something very quickly. I have a story for you all. So the first story for you all is I spent many years of my life traveling to and from South Korea to America. And if you are my friend or my family and you're watching this, you already know, okay? I have FOMO, which I did a video on that. If you guys don't know what that means, go back and watch it. I had FOMO and I didn't know where I wanted to live in life. So I was like, I'm gonna live in Korea. Oh, I have to live in America. Oh, I gotta live in Korea. Oh.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
It was a whole big thing, all right? I know, I'm past that now, maybe. We'll see.
Bruh.
I had FOMO, so I spent a lot of my time and money traveling to and from Korea to America, like going to America, coming back to Korea, going to Korea, coming back to America. And while doing that, while it was interesting and fun, and like honestly, when I think back on it now, I was kind of living the life. Like, I didn't realize it, but I had a decent job. I didn't make good, like great money, but it was like money. And I didn't really have to pay rent because in Korea, your company pays for your rent, and my bills weren't really that much. So I had a lot of extra money to spend. I was just like traveling a lot and seeing friends and family and stuff like that. It was a pretty good life. But my travel expenses really gobbled up my money, like my saving, my budget. Because I traveled so much and so often, the money that I could have been saving or that, I had extra money to do something with, instead of like, saving it, putting it into a savings account or planning for the future for something, I would be like, let's take a vacation.
Let's go, girl.
And I would either go to like Japan from Korea, like I would go to Japan, or maybe I would go somewhere in Korea, like a different city, or I would just be like, whatever, let's go back to America for a little bit and see my friends and family, I would spend all my extra money on traveling, which I don't necessarily regret.
I regret nothing.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love traveling so much that kind of not mad at that. I'm not mad that I spent a lot of it, but it did gobble up my budget. I would rather just go travel than like pay for my groceries. So I will be eating like ramen, or in Korea we have kimbap jjonguk, which I've mentioned before in another video, which is like a really cheap restaurant in Korea. Like, everything on the menu used to be under around $5 US, 5,000 won back in the day. I know inflation has like hit every part of the world at this point, so it's probably more expensive now. But like back in the day, that place used to be so cheap. So I would either go there or eat at work, because a lot of times I had the option to like, eat whatever my students were eating. So I would like get a free meal there, or I would just like eat ramen, because that's like really cheap, especially in Korea. Like, even ramen's dirt cheap here in America, but it's really cheap in Asian countries, so I would just spend my money on traveling or doing other stuff like that, or maybe sometimes shopping, especially like Korean skincare and makeup. Like, I would do that, and it would gobble up a lot of my budget. Like, most now as an adult, technically I was an adult then too, but now as a more wiser adult, my budget is gobbled up by like financial planning and bills, But back in the day, it was all like gobbled up by like shopping and food and traveling, because I was like, oh, YOLO. Another thing we used to say, actually, you guys, sidebar, I heard that nobody says YOLO anymore. YOLO is an abbreviation for you only live once, but apparently that's what older millennials say. The cool new young crowd, the generation below me, generation X, Z, Gen Z, sorry, Gen Z, they don't say YOLO. They're like, oh, you're definitely a millennial. Like if you say the word YOLO. I'm like, what? I always say YOLO. It's relatable. You only live once. Like YOLO, go ahead and do it. I don't know. Maybe that's beside the point. That's another story for another day. I was just like, YOLO, let it gobble up all at once of my budget. I'm gonna have the best time of my life. But now I'm like, no, I have a family.
I'm too old for that silly kid stuff. I got responsibilities now.
I have to plan. I can't be doing this. I can't be doing that. I can't have this gobble up too much of my budget because it's going to be detrimental to me in the end. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're watching this and you really, really know me, yes, I do still shop. Yes, I do still get my food in. All right. I still go to the restaurant. I still do things. But first, I make sure my bills are paid. So mind your business. If you're watching this going, Carly, I know you be doing all those things still. Yes, I am aware. I have a problem when it comes to shopping. I have a problem when it comes to eating really good food. I don't want to miss out on it. So there's that. But I have changed a lot. I make sure everything is paid for. Boom, done. And then if I have extra money, then it gets gobbled up by shopping and eating nice, delicious food. All right. So that's the first definition, the first example for the first definition of gobble up. Now we can also say gobble up when we're talking about our food, like when you eat something really fast, you gobble something up. So an example I have for this one, a little short story, is when I was growing up, I used to gobble up my food so fast, I didn't really even chew my food. And I used to hold my fork, literally, this is so embarrassing. I was pretty much almost a teenager or around my teenage years when I realized that I was holding my fork wrong. You know how you hold a fork? I'm just gonna use this pen. You hold a fork like this, right? You just eat like this. I remember being at my sister's house when I was maybe 13 and I was eating like this. And my sister was like, Carly, what are you doing? And I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? She's like, why are you holding your fork like that? And I'm like what? And she's like, you're holding it like a shovel. You're shoveling in your food. You're literally gobbling up your food. Raking it into your mouth like it was a shovel or a rake or something. And I'm like, this is wrong. This is how I always hold my spoon or fork. And she's like, oh my goodness, Carly, that's how Neanderthals hold their spoon or fork. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, nobody taught me, I guess. Oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong my whole life. I'm 13 years old. This is so embarrassing. So she was like, Carly, literally like this, almost and then eat. And now that I'm using a pen, it feels awkward, but you just eat like this, and you do it like that. And I had to train myself to change. It took me a whole year because I was so used to just gobbling up my food like this, shoveling that in, just whoop, raking it in, instead of like this. I had to train myself to switch and eat and hold a fork or spoon like this. Very embarrassing. I'm letting you guys know a lot of embarrassing things in my life. I don't know if I should stop or if I should continue, but regardless, that happened. I think it was because now my dad, he holds his fork and spoon correctly, the right way. Growing up, my dad used to gobble up his food really quickly too, because he spent the majority of his life, he spent 30 years in the US Navy, and he was kind of forced to have very short lunch breaks in the Navy. Back then, it was you get a break for lunch, maybe 10 minutes top, and you have to gobble it down and go back to work, especially when he was shipped out on the boat overseas, doing things. I don't know. He was in Desert Storm, fighting wars and doing all that good stuff. You don't have a lot of time to just chill and have a nice dining experience. You gobble up your food. And so because he was used to that, whenever he was home, he would also still gobble up his food. And I would see him doing that. And I'm like, oh, I have to eat fast as well. Also, I know if my parents watch this, which Hopefully they do. I don't know. My dad used to steal stuff off my plate as a kid. I love you so much, both you and mom. But sometimes some stuff will be missing off my plate. And I was like, if I gobble this up quickly, they can't take any food off my plate. And you know what? I do the same thing now as I'm a parent. Sometimes I'm like looking at my kid's plate. I was like, I think I gave you too much. That's delicious. And my kids look at me like,
bombastic side eye.
you can get your own food, you know? But back in the day, my dad would be like, oh, Carl, you gonna eat that? Before I even respond, gone. I'm like, yeah, I was, but okay. You know, so he would gobble up his food, and then I would watch him gobbling up his food, so that would make me gobble up my food. And then also I was afraid like somebody's gonna take my food, so I would gobble it up. And even sometimes my mom would say, Carly, slow down, nobody's gonna steal it from you. And I'm like, maybe you guys will. If I take too long, maybe dad will get something off my plate, or maybe you will like pack it up because I'm taking too long or something. I'm like, maybe it's gonna disappear off my plate some way or another. So I would gobble it up. Apparently I would use my spoon or fork like a Neanderthal while I was gobbling up my food. And I never even knew this for like 13 years of my life. I hope you guys have a better understanding of this phrasal verb, gobble up. If you do, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you all in the next video.